Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's BOC Group Business Insights online event. I'm glad that you're all here. I hope you're all doing well amidst the current circumstances. I'm happy to see that so many of you are attending. Today, we're showcasing ADONIS and ADOIT Connect for Confluence, demonstrating how you can publish your BPM and EA information in Confluence. Here are a few tips that will allow you to follow this event more effectively. We've also attached a handout which you can access and download. During the event, all participants are welcome to ask questions. We will do our best to answer them at the end. Please use the side panel of the webinar application found on the right side of your screen. Depending on the time remaining at the end, we'll select a few questions and answer them live. For any questions that remain unanswered, we'll be sure to answer them via email after the event. As a participant, your name and email are, of course, anonymous to other participants. I'm Samia Mergam, the moderator today. I'd like to introduce today's speakers, Enrique Lobo-Cruz, Market Development Manager here at BOC Group, and our second speaker, Eric Guschelbauer, Group Service Manager at BOC Group. I will now hand you over to our first speaker, Enrique, to walk you through his part of today's presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Samia. Welcome, everyone. My name is Enrique Lobo-Cruz. I will be taking you through today's presentation. I'll try to give you first an insight into what it is that the Confluence integration actually provides, and also give you an insight into why we've built this integration and added it to our marketplace. We'll, of course, take the time to showcase the integration live for you. We'll jump right in Confluence and show you several use cases to give you an idea of what and how you could actually implement it, especially within the context of transformation projects. But first, we'll take you through a few of the explanation of the main motivation behind the integration itself. As you know, BOC Group provides a real transformation suite from a business process management and GRC perspective. What we bring forward now with our marketplace offerings, and one of them being the Confluence integration that we're looking at today, is a way to leverage and maximize the power and benefit and value you drive from the initiatives that you're doing from a BPM and EA perspective. So we encourage you, of course, to look towards the different competitive advantages that we can provide you through this digital advantage that we deliver in the marketplaces. There are options such as integrations to SAP Solution Manager for ADONIS, ServiceNow integrations for ADOIT, e-learning courses within those marketplaces. So of course, we will be trying to bring out those to you in this format of online events, but feel free to check out marketplace.boc-group.com for a full list of our marketplace options. So what is this solution that we're presenting today, and why the Confluence integration? We know that from an ADONIS perspective and ADOIT perspective, we have several main domains that we want to be able to manage. We want to be able to understand. We want to increase the way that transparency is held within the organization. And what we try to really leverage from an integration perspective is how can we bring those benefits that we have within ADONIS and ADOIT, where your typical stakeholders are usually our process experts or business analysts, enterprise architects, and really spread that audience out to maximize the value of the knowledge that we're putting into these systems, and to really, nurture that knowledge transfer within the organization. So further from that, what we're actually trying to achieve is obviously to increase transparency within the organization. As we have these sources of truth within ADONIS and ADOIT, we have to make sure that that source of truth can still be shared with other users and other stakeholders in the organization. We want to make sure we are really effectively communicate these pieces of information as standards, and in that way also promote agility, so that when it is easier to gain knowledge, we can also become more agile. And this is really a focus on that knowledge transfer and going far beyond what BPM typically entails. From a further, more ADOIT-oriented perspective, of course, we want to make sure we're communicating IT information with other stakeholders. We want to make sure that we enable the business with that information. We want to create a better understanding of the architecture of our organization, so that we can, rather than hold back progress, we want to be motivating and enabling that progress. Understand the dependencies that obviously we have between business and IT, and of course take that further than what typical EA does, and really onboard further stakeholders that can really benefit from those exchanges of information. So the two main focuses that we'll give today, and this is also what you'll be seeing in the live demo, which we're going to switch into right after this slide, is really focusing on one hand, the knowledge management and knowledge transfer within the organization so that we can have a more operational, efficient team when we're talking about how we operate as a business. And on the other hand, the collaboration that typically happens within transformation and projects. We know that Confluence is obviously a collaboration suite, and we want to make sure that we are connecting that collaborative environment with the information that holds the truth about our organization. So actually making that source of truth provide the baseline for making decisions about projects and change. So let's jump right into our environment. We're going to switch right into our Confluence instance. We're going to be looking at an example today of our company portal, which we've built internally at BOC. This is obviously an example showcasing how we might go about collaborating around a project that is seeking to do a digitalization transformation for a particular process with a concept of process improvement, obviously. From the general aspect of what we're going to be seeing today, we want to make sure we have, as a collaboration space in Confluence, the ability to have relevant contacts defined. We are able to create also references to specific content that drives the collaboration. For example, here our high-level process map of the organization. We can also see quick access that we can provide to users because we're designing our own Confluence page here, where we're embedding quick access to models that are most relevant, process models that are most relevant to the users, with obviously the ability to directly within Confluence either jump to the tool or to have direct access to it and have a preview of that particular process and just review what is a particular definition even before having to jump into the details of what you might see in ADONIS. So that's, of course, a big part of the integration, enabling that the content that we see here comes live from the latest definition of what we see in ADONIS. So we're really pulling that information directly in from the live system. We're going to look at how we're also from a structure of how we're looking at a project, not only communicating information to the other stakeholders, but in a project context. Here I've prepared an example of how we might be working on a process digitalization project. So I see here some of the tasks that we defined. This is typically how we collaborate within Confluence. I see I've done my project ideas and SWOT analysis. So I can jump to my SWOT analysis page. Here, for example, I've been collaborating with the architecture team. On one hand, some of the business architects, we've been defining some of the SWOT capability or SWOT elements that we're analyzing for this particular process, and also have worked with the team to have them give us the general baseline of the artifacts from the architecture perspective that they would suggest we utilize or have in scope for this particular project. So we're enabling them to collaborate with us within this project and putting everything within one place, obviously. Going through into the next project or work package, I see that I'm also assigned to the actual process improvement definition. So I have to define the objectives, have a handover of the sales side of things and how we trigger a project creation. So here I see a brief description of how this is defined. Yeah. And I see there's a space for my process. So obviously I want to make sure I'm defining a process. I want to link it here, and we're going to look at how easy it is to go into ADONIS, define the process, and then jump back in and add it for sharing and collaboration with other users in the project. So I'm going to log into my ADONIS instance. I'm joining in with my ADOIT user to our ADO Money Bank, as many of you may know, is our demo bank, and just kind of jump into design a document and go to my template that I've prepared just for the speed of presentation today. So here we have our typical scenario within ADONIS. You obviously would start by defining the certain elements that you might reuse as you're modeling. So we're going to see here in our lanes, we're going to put in our roles. So we can simply, with the latest version of ADONIS, just drag and drop the resources that we're using in the particular lanes, right, from our repository. And we can start, obviously, as well, modeling our process. We start with our start event. So we have an offer signed from the sales team. From there, we begin modeling our tasks. So we have prepare handover. We then execute the actual handover. Then we go into a first status, which is having our handover done. So we're obviously leveraging the simplicity of the hover modeler. We're here gonna go into our parallel decision, parallel gateway, and gonna introduce our next step, which will be to trigger the project creation. And we'll add the parallel step here as well. Just gonna put it in there, and that's gonna be our perform installation. We'll just do a quick spell check there. Of course, you can leverage your spell check from your browser, and we'll just reposition this for better modeling approach. And we'll close it off with our converging gateway, obviously DPMN compliant, and we'll connect our dots here to have, sorry about that, to have our end event. So that's our process defined. We have our project opened. So we've defined a process very quickly, obviously with quick drag and drop, as you saw in the resources. That goes further than just what we saw in the lanes. We can obviously take the further assets that the architecture team had already referenced to us. For example, having here the CRM that is prepared, they used to, I'm sorry, I seem to be here experiencing a bit of a lag. Just a moment. I'm gonna save my work. We'll just take a second to save that. I can now jump into my Confluence page, and what I can do is simply go to my edit mode. This is how we would again go about sharing something that I've created in my system. It's currently saving. And we see at the top where we can typically add macros. Macros are the way of adding and embedding smart content in Confluence. So part of the smart content that you'll be able to see when you have this add-on is having the ability to embed either ADOIT content. We see the different macro options for embedding models, searches, images, and so on. So we're gonna do the model viewer for ADONIS. So we select the ADONIS model viewer. Here we'll be presented with the list of all the processes that we have in our repository. Still going to load up from the database, and we're going to put in project startup. Not sure why it's not coming up. Let's just navigate through our repository here. There we have. Okay, that was my fault. It's set up. So we can navigate through the repository, as you can see in the folder structure here, or search for the content. We can then see the preview of the model we're going to add. And then if you click next, we're able to select the size, how we want to embed that modeling. We will just stick to the default for now. We can choose if we select within the tool to show the model name or not. So we're going to keep that as a title. So we'll keep the defaults, finish. And once we save this page, any user that opens up my project page, they will be able to see my current status of my process as defined in ADONIS. The main benefit also being that any moment that I improve, change, when we do any changes to that particular process that we built, we can be certain that that process will be available in its latest version to the users. So it really drives that agile work in a sense, and keeps us away from having the typical kind of, you want to share something, you export it to someone in a file, or you might send them a link. This really puts it where the collaboration is already happening, and it drives that agility in that sense. All right, so we're going to jump back and to see how the interplay works, because this is not only one way from ADONIS to Confluence, but also from Confluence to ADONIS. So we're going to jump back into our start page. We're going to look at the company map that we had there, that we published out for people to see. These are other processes of the organization. These are the quick access links to the processes. Here we also even have the org chart of the organization. Just loading up. Sorry about that. We're experiencing quite heavy internet problems in Austria the last couple of days, so we're just dealing with that at the moment. Just going to zoom a little bit in here, and we're going to see that we have, for example, our financing process. We can click on it. We can see also a preview of the description of that process. We can definitely parse that as well. So users have an interactive medium on how to see and interact with the content directly here. But if they want more details, they can obviously always jump and show those details in ADONIS. So they would jump right in. Of course, they ask to log into that. And from that perspective, then jump right into seeing the details of that process that they clicked on within Confluence. So you're really connecting both worlds of how you're collaborating, sharing. We then see this particular process financing is now highlighted to us. We can then jump to the process map that defines financing. And we see, of course, the details of the financing process. Obviously, an easy way for users to simply jump right in and see what information is available. The typical drill down is available to jump right into the details of a BPMN diagram, where we can see, of course, the process as a whole. We can see the documents, we can see a description, see what systems are available, and users can obviously toggle into views that might be more comfortable for them, like the textual view, where users can simply parse the information, or going back to our graphic, stay on the BPMN notation. So that's really the round trip concept of how we are enabling that collaboration to happen. We're making sure that we're leveraging the content that we've already worked to build and define as a golden source in ADONIS and ADOIT, and really share that with other users. So this is my part of the presentation. I'm glad you could see this in action. We also have the benefit of having Eric Kuschelbauer on the call. He's going to be taking you through a sneak peek of the to-be released version of the Confluence integration for ADONIS and ADOIT, and showing you some of the new use cases and new macros that will be introduced through that new release. So Eric, please take it away.
Great, thank you, Enrique, and thank you, Samir, for your presentations and for highlighting the benefits of an integration of Confluence with ADONIS and ADOIT. So again, my name is Eric Kuschelbauer, and I'd like to welcome you as well to today's Business Insight. Now, I would like to take a couple of minutes, as Enrique already said, to give you a preview of the upcoming version of Connect for Confluence. We're currently putting the finishing touches on this release, and it will be available by the beginning of next week. I hope by now all of you can see my screen, so we can get started right away. With this new version of Connect for Confluence, we are introducing a new macro, which allows users to integrate any search query from either ADONIS or ADOIT into Confluence. These queries are displayed as interactive tables, similar to the search results in our products, but with way more functionality and options. Why do I think this is a huge deal? Why do we think this will have a big impact? Your enterprise repository, it already contains a lot of information, and I'm sure that there is added value in it for each and every one of you. So think maybe about that information, think about that assets, that artifacts, and your information needs for a moment. All of these information needs, they can be phrased as questions. For example, what are the core applications or core processes in your operation? What is their status, and do you need to take action at the moment? Which applications support your core processes, or which risks and their assessments are currently critical? Regarding that, let me point out two things. First, all of these questions can be answered by using the search of ADONIS or ADOIT. Second, the result to all of these questions is a list or a table. Hence, with this new macro, we are able to set up cockpits for any management scenario within your corporate portal, within your enterprise wiki. With that being said, I'd like to get our demo started, in which we will at first take a look at an existing cockpit that already includes the new macro. Then we'll of course adapt an existing macro to see how it looks and feels and how easy it can be changed. And at the end, I'd like to show you how you can create your own search and easily extend your current Confluence documentation. For that, I prepared already a page that will help us to better understand what I'm trying to show you. This page covers actually our application architecture, and it provides us an overview of the most important information. In this page, we want to list all of our applications with a high demand regarding availability. Furthermore, we want to point out the most important details regarding these applications. So for example, the responsible business actor, the strategic importance, or the business fit. If we scroll down a bit, we already see our new macro live and in action, where at the top you see the name of the search query called application components with high availability. Beneath that is a simple description so we know what we are currently seeing and how we can interpret this information. So currently they're stating this search query shows us all application components that are required to be operating on a high level. If we dive a bit more into the details and have a look at one of these columns, which I'm going to highlight, we see in the first column, of course, an icon of our object or model, which helps us to easily identify the content we are viewing. In the second column, we see the name of the object. So as you can see already, the name is visualized in a different style, and my cursor changes if I'm on it. This is because objects and models are included as links in these tables. So if I click on that, I'm opening up ADOIT in that case in a new tab, and it automatically pulls up the notebook with all the detailed information of my selection. So in that case, the accounts and payment system. Let's just close that and go back to our table. In the second column, we see, of course, the responsible also as a link, followed by all of our detailed information, such as strategic importance, the business fit, or lifecycle information. If needed, we can, of course, reorder these columns, just simply drag and drop them as you please. And please be aware, these setups, these changes to that table, they will be stored for each and every user. So if you go back to the page, you will find it in the way you already left it. So quite nice and neat. Next to that, and to improve the collaboration that Enrique also mentioned, we have the option to jump directly to ADOIT and that element. And of course, we have the option to share specific content. Either we can copy this link to that element and paste it in our messaging software, something like MS Teams or Slack, or we can share that link directly using our email application. If we want to share more than just one element, for example, the whole table, we find that option on the top left, and there we have a specific export menu. In this export menu, you can either copy the whole table to your clipboard, paste it to your MS Excel installation and dive deeper into the details, or you can store a copy as a CSV or MS Excel file. Lastly, of course, you have the option to print it as you please. So also all the information is always accessible. If we stay on top of that page, on the top of the table, and switch over to the right-hand side, we see a filter option, which helps us to narrow down the information we're currently viewing. So for example, I might be interested in seeing all the applications that I'm responsible for. So let me enter Arch. So I see that I'm currently responsible for 7 out of the 14 applications. Another option would be to filter regarding a specific criteria. So let's filter for everything that is currently in a business fit state of excellent. Or a last use case would be to display all applications that are only valid until the end of the year. If we take a look at the bottom of our table, we see all information regarding paging. So currently we display 2 entries out of a 14 in total, which comes in, of course, handy if we have a large number of results, for example, an excerpt of all live and production applications. Of course, we have always the option to refresh our table if something has changed since we loaded the page. We can pull up that search in ADOIT, which I'll show you in just a second. And of course, we have a link to a brief feedback survey. So if you want to tell us something, maybe something you like, maybe something is missing, please do it using this link. Now that we've seen how we can work with the table, let me show you how we can easily change such a search and adapt the table to your needs. For that, I'm going back to ADOIT. I simply click on that link. Again, ADOIT will open up. It will pull up the search just as I configured it. We can see that in the top, application components with high availability. We see the same 14 results we saw before in Confluence. We see the same column setup, and now we can start our alterations right away. For this example, I just want to add a new column, maybe some lifecycle information. So if you hover over this, you can select columns. And within that, we can, of course, filter and search for our specific attributes. As again, I want to add some lifecycle information. I see the valid until date is already contained. So I'll check the valid from date as well, confirm my selection, and you can see the new column is already in the ADOIT search result. From here on, there's just one more step to do, which is actually to save the changes to our search. So I move to the top right and save that query. Again, I will confirm my changes, and actually we're pretty much done already. Only thing that is left to do for us is refresh our table in Confluence. We can do that either by navigating again to that page, we can do that by reloading it, or just executing the refresh button. And you can see there's already the new information contained. So quite nice, easy and quick to get all the information, to get the context out of your system and spread through your whole operation. For the last part of the demo, I want to show you how you can create a new query and include it into Confluence. For that, let me go back to ADOIT and start from scratch. We still have the search from before opened up, but let's check this button up at the top, which states create a new search. This new search can now be anything. Any of these questions, any of these information needs that I mentioned before could be asked for the system and included. As for now, I'm still interested in my lifecycle information, so I want to see all the technologies that are expiring by the end of the year. So I'm selecting a specific object. This will be my system software as of now. Now the tool lists me, of course, all system softwares that are currently contained in my repository, which are 132. I want to restrict that list to everything that's expiring by the end of the year. So I select property, search for my valid until date. And now let's configure our filter and say everything that is before the end of the year. So I'll pull up December 31st and update my search. Now I can see the search looks quite fine. I'm happy with the results. There are only two things I have to do to get it over to Confluence. First of all, of course, I have to store it. So let's save that query. I call it expiring technologies, and I add the comment that we've done that in the Business Insight today. Now that my query is saved, I can always pull it up in ADOIT, but I need to go one step further to have it published in Confluence. So I pull up the menu for managing my saved queries. Currently, you see there are only two queries which I can manage, the one we've already seen and the one we just defined, the expiring technologies. As we can see, the switch in the column public has not been activated, so it is not publicly available and therefore not available in Confluence. Let's change that, toggle the switch, and execute this command. With that, we're already done and all set in ADOIT. So let's open up Confluence and add this new macro. For that, I already prepared an empty page, which looks quite a lot like the one before, but without the table at the bottom. Similar to Enrique, I'll enter the edit mode. I just put the cursor where I want my table to go, and then we'll go to the top to add another macro. In that case, same menu as Enrique showed you already, and I'm going to select the ADOIT query table. What's popping up now is a configuration dialog, and that's pretty much the only configuration that you need, and all is in one place. Let's briefly go through the steps that are necessary or required. If you have more than one repository in your scenario, you can select the one you want to choose. You can select, of course, any of the public queries. In that case, it would be either the one we already know or the new one we just defined. We see, of course, the description to check if it's the right query. And lastly, there would be an option to select the language in which the query should be executed, but this is only relevant for scenarios where content is managed in multiple languages. So for now, I'm just fine with English. We can now either just enter the macro and be done, or step a bit further in the configuration. But this I would like to show you. We can include the name and the description if we want to. And if we're fine, we can use the standard column setup as we've seen it in ADOIT, or we can use a custom one. This might come in handy if you have multiple occurrences of the same search. So for example, regarding a specific person or a specific department. So let's just activate that. I might remove the availability and I want to add another attribute. If I click on an empty space, Confluence will already show me all the attributes I can choose from ADOIT or ADONIS. In that case, maybe let's add the specialization and add the roadmap status. Last two options before we see the result would be the initial sorting column. I'm fine with the name, that sounds reasonable. And if need be, I can define a grouping. So for example, I can group regarding the status, I can group regarding escalation handling, or if I want to group regarding a specific state or responsible. But I'm fine with no grouping because we did not have too many results. So I'll just finish, update my page, and then wait a second until everything is being reloaded. You see the new page. We have the same macro as before, and it took us, 2 to 3 minutes to configure that search, to configure that know-how transfer to Confluence, and we can now interactively work with that information. We can spread it to new stakeholders that might not be aware of ADOIT and how to handle it, which is quite nice and interesting. I'm sure you can think of lots and lots of business cases regarding your architecture, be it from business perspective or technology or transformation perspectives. With that, I hope I was able to give you a brief insight regarding our new version. I hope I was able to spark some interest, and I can't wait to hear your feedback, your ideas and comments. So thank you very much, and back to you, Samia.
Thanks, Eric, and thank you, Enrique. That was a very insightful presentation, just taking over the controls. All right, to our attendees, we hope that you found it interesting as well. If you'd like to find out more about Confluence, our Confluence integration, discuss your own use cases, plan concrete next steps, or if you simply have any other general questions, please contact us via email or go directly to the BOC Group Knowledge Hub for more information. We would appreciate your feedback. So please access this link to our event survey. Enrique is going to be adding this link to the chat right now, so I hope that you can all see it. As we mentioned in the beginning, we'll now also take a few minutes to answer some of your questions. Let me just have a look. All right, so the first question is, does the integration work on SaaS environments?
So yes, I'm assuming that's referring to ADOIT and ADONIS SaaS environments. So yes, that is the case. If you're running ADONIS and ADOIT either on-premise or SaaS, the Confluence integration can be set up and is built for purpose.
Right, thanks, Enrique. Another question that we've received is, what deployment scenarios of Confluence are supported?
This is Eric. I'm taking that one. So to get everyone on the same page, Atlassian currently offers 3 different types of installations for Confluence, which is cloud, server, and data center. We're currently supporting server installations, and we're working hard on the support for data center installations. That will be available in the near future, though of course we have to take measures to ensure the best possible performance in such large scale scenarios. Regarding the Atlassian cloud, we currently do not support that installation because it's based on a different technical architecture.
All right, thanks, Eric. Next question. What do we need to do to install the Confluence macro? Will we need BOC installation support?
I'll answer that one as well quite quickly. This is a simple installation that is very well documented, and it allows your Confluence admin to install the add-on without the need of BOC, so you can do that on your own. What we will provide you with is, of course, an installation package and a step-by-step installation manual. However, if there's any problem or the need for us to step in, our colleagues will be happy to support your installation remotely.
All right, let's look for the next question. Do users need the training to use the macro?
Regarding that, no, you don't need any training or you don't need to plan on that. As mentioned before, the installation is documented down to the very details. On the other hand, regarding the Confluence users, we do not introduce any new or altered mechanisms, but rather rely on the well-known look and feel of Confluence or other table tools. So users should feel right away at home when using Connect for Confluence.
Thanks, Eric. And perhaps one last question as we're running short of time. Do users need to have access in ADONIS and a reader license to read content in Confluence?
I might take the last one as well. So no, to view content from either ADONIS or ADOIT in Confluence, a dedicated user for our products is not required. Any user with access to your Confluence can view the integrated content. But of course, you select and define which contents you would like to share and integrate. So in the end, with Connect for Confluence, you have a complete reader portal for ADONIS and ADOIT content at hand.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Enrique.
One additional thing here, sorry. To add to that, I think there was also several questions on this as I'm reading through the list of questions. So although you do not need or you will not consume reader licenses, as Eric just mentioned, the add-on that we've presented today is a additional licensed element. So it is licensed separately. So if you already have ADONIS or ADOIT, we would encourage you to reach out to your existing account manager. Otherwise, as we mentioned through the links on the marketplace entries, to request a quote. The licensing is based on your Confluence license level or your tier, and we'll be happy to provide you that information if you would like that. You will also see in the survey the possibility to request that information from our teams at BOC, and we'll be happy to provide that based on the survey that you submit.
Great. Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Eric, as well. We'll be sure to answer the remaining questions via email in the coming days. I'm happy to see that a lot of you have attended today, and I hope that we could really meet your expectations. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and to follow us on LinkedIn to stay informed about other events and interesting news. On behalf of Enrique, Eric, and myself, I wish you all a pleasant day.